Hello, my beautiful friend. I am so excited that you're here because we are going to be talking about how to work with tarot and oracle cards for personal and spiritual growth. And no, it's just a high level introduction because the subject is deep. You can literally spend a lifetime studying tarot, studying oracle cards, studying dreams, studying sign and symbol. It's an ever deepening and widening subject because it is connected to the mystery, when used correctly, connected to the mystery of who you are, the mystery of your soul. So you can tell I'm super excited. Anyway, yes, we are. Oh, and we're going to be getting deeper into the subject. So if you really like it, if you really enjoy it, we're getting deeper into it during the spiritual mentorship that is starting in January 2021, where we're really going to use sign and symbol for manifestation, but also reading the map that life has laid out for you. Yeah. Spirit speaks to us in sign and symbol. Yeah. That's how the universe speaks to us. That's how spirit speaks to us. These signs. One of my favorite authors, Robert Moss, he calls it sidewalk oracles. You know, there are all these little love notes left everywhere for you by our universal consciousness. So why work with tarot and oracle cards? Certainly you could just do meditation, you could use prayer. There's something, and you can, to help to connect, right? We're talking about personal growth, not necessarily divining the future, right? It's not really about that. That's not how I use them necessarily. Sometimes, I do ask, I have different cards for different things, which I'm going to get into in a moment, about timing, but it's not necessarily about predicting a future that is outside of me and that I am not connected to. So the way that we utilize the cards in general, the way we utilize them in general, is to help us with this process of what some may call individuation, help with the process of becoming enlightened to ourselves, right? I believe, I know, this is my knowing, my personal knowing, that God, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, resides everywhere, including inside of me. So the more I am aligned with myself, the more I am aligned with the mystery of the universe. And that mystery is ever deepening, right? Ever deepening, it's ever widening. So I like to tell my students, there's nothing more interesting than what's going on the inside. And so you are on an adventure of a lifetime. So the difference, let's start with, so anyways, that's why we want to work with this stuff, right? Because we need a map on this adventure of a lifetime. And so that's one of the reasons why you want to use tarot. I use the Thoth deck here. That's one deck, a tarot deck. So tarot, the difference between tarot, and then these are my one, I am sitting in a sea of cards. This is an oracle deck. Tarot cards are organized in a very particular way to help to map out a journey. So they're divided into the major and the minor arcana. Like I said, high level, we're not going to get too deep into this. The major arcana is the big hero's journey, the archetypical journey that you and I are on. It maps that out. So it starts with the Fool, and then it ends with the universe or the world, depending on what cards you're using. And then the minor arcana can help us with the little bits of information along the way. So as an example, as you're on this journey, the minor arcana might say, yeah, watch out for this pitfall over here, or maybe reconsider, what's going on. This over here is something that's really wonderful. You might want to take some time and visit there. So you can think of tarot using it in that way. So in my mind, tarot is really good for expanding our consciousness and expanding our connection to the bigger part of ourselves. And I'm going to talk about how this works in just a moment. Using oracle cards, like the tree cards, the tree magic cards, which are phenomenal, or using these, which we use all the time in our classes on Facebook Live, the Journey of Love. These are oracle cards, and oracle cards to me feel like a big hug. You know, it's a direct message from the universe. They can be on the nose, they can be really esoteric, but they're not organized in this way that is a map of consciousness, and yet they can be very useful. So how do they work, right? How do these cards work? And then how do you choose your cards? So one, like I said, with my deck here, all my decks here, the Toth deck, which is I've had for, I think, a little bit more than half my life. Actually, I've had them for a long, long time. If you are interested in the Toth deck, please get this book by Angeles Arian. She was an anthropologist, and she just shines such a beautiful light on this deck in particular. But you can use any deck that you are attracted to. So I guess we'll start with what decks you should choose. You know, just like choosing towels, I know it sounds mundane, but anything that you're attracted to, the artwork just might resonate with you. I love these just because they're gorgeous, right? These are Manifesting Your Greatness by Amy Chance. Yep, Amy Chase, C-H-A-C-E. And these are absolutely gorgeous. I just love her. I love folk art. So maybe you find some that just have art. There's so many out there, right? And you might choose some that, you know, you're going to play with all the time. It's like hanging out with friends at different times in your lives. You know, some you'll play with a lot at one time and some you won't. So you just choose whatever you feel really guided to. I have so many. I'm going to just show you these. These are some of my favorites. These are rune cards. I love these too. If you don't know what the runes are, we can talk about that later, but these are apps. Whenever I play with them, they have some water damage, but that's okay. You know, just joy. Hello, JoyCode. Joy, joy, joy. I love that. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. You choose what you are drawn to. Spirit saying, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. You like it. You like it. Just if it makes you feel a certain way, that's the right deck for you. And you don't have more than one deck. Have at least 2 decks. And the reason is because you need different decks for different situations. So for example, I don't use my Toth deck as an example. I don't use this deck for mundane things, for what do I need to know about this customer, about this client? You can, I don't. I use these for the big questions, for, you know, what is this cycle, cycle that I'm in? What does this look like? I use it for really connecting to, like I said, my bigger questions. I use a deck, I'll put this over here, called the Voyager, to help me with career and some everyday questions. And then I also use Tree Magic. These are for interpersonal and also timing. So these are wonderful for timing because the trees bloom at different times of the year. So you can see that I have a series of cards that I use for different aspects of my life, right? Just like you might wear different clothing during different seasons, or even friends, right? You have friends that you go hiking with, you have maybe a book club friend, but your book club friend maybe doesn't like to go out hiking. So you have friends to do different things with. I want you to think about your cards that way too. So get at least 2 decks, one for the spiritual and one for the everyday. And how will you know? You will know by playing with them. You're going to get a sense, and Spirit is telling me right now, this is very important, that this process will teach you to trust yourself and to trust your intuition. You're going to make some mistakes in reading the signs, the symbols, and even reading your own feelings, because in the beginning, you know, you'll make mistakes because that's how you learn. That's how we all learn. We learn from doing. We learn from making some mistakes. We can learn by watching other people make mistakes, but we're talking about your own intuition. And this is something very, very important, that we have been cut off from the validity of trusting our own subjective experience and of trusting our intuition. It doesn't mean that you don't trust science and logic and reason. They're working together, right? Like the two parts of your brain, the left brain and the right brain. How we're in one reality, right? The material reality, and we're in the spiritual reality at the same time. One doesn't need to be sacrificed for the other. And so you can think of playing with the oracle cards and playing with your tarot cards as a journey home to yourself. It's a journey home to yourself. Yeah? Yeah, I know. I know. So how do they work? I'll tell you in just a minute. I'm taking some coffee. This was Mark's dad's card, a cup, not card. And I think it's of Gauguin. It's a painting of Gauguin. So it's my Naked Lady cup. Just go with it. It's a naked lady cup. We're adults. Anyway, so how does this work? Angelus Arian, even if you don't want to play with the Thoth deck, you might want to peruse this book. I just love it. I've had like 3 versions of it because I write in it and it falls apart and I drink coffee and then I spill coffee. I'm not a neat person. Anyhow, so how does this work? I'm paraphrasing. In it, she says, the bigger part of yourself, right? The bigger part. So think of yourself in 2 parts. Everything, it seems like it's dual in reality. There's only one thing, but everything feels dual. There's your conscious part, right? There's the consciousness, the conscious part of yourself. Then there's a bigger part that we're going to call the unconscious, the bigger part of yourself, right? So your conscious mind, conscious self, I think conscious mind is probably better for this discussion. Your conscious mind can only see so much, can only make determinations based on observations, based on what's known. It has a very limited purview, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's as it should be. The bigger part of you, right? The bigger part of you, we'll call it the unconscious, there's a lot of different names, can see everything. It's interdimensional, actually. I know, it's deep stuff. It's interdimensional. It has 360-degree view. It is out of time. It is timeless. It is the timeless part of your consciousness, in that it's not bound by the structures and by the laws and the rules of this material reality. And so as such, it chooses the card through you. So it's not an accident. Whatever card you're choosing, it's not an accident. That card has been preordained. And as the bigger part of you chooses that card through you, and the conscious mind, the conscious self looks at it, you are having now a dialogue. I have chills. Isn't this exciting? You are now having a dialogue with the bigger part of yourself. And if you are a wise woman or a wise man, and you are heeding and reading the symbols and having this conversation, you become more aligned with that bigger part of yourself, with the spiritual part. I use a lot of different names because it feels different to me at different times, right? Like it's the soul. I don't want to say it's just the soul, because the soul, we conceptualize what the soul is. So it's just, for me today, it's just the bigger part of yourself that is connected to all that is. And my personal feeling about life ever since I was a little girl, the divine resides within me and is all around me. Okay, it is within. The more I understand myself, not just my personality, but the more I begin to have this communion with self, I have this communion with the divine, and these are tools in that communion. Isn't that beautiful? This is so much more profound than fortune telling. And there's nothing wrong with fortune telling. That can be very profound. It can also be problematic if you are continually going to someone else to have them read your fortune. it doesn't mean that you never do it, but if you follow this path where you're learning to read those signs and symbols and commune with the divine, you're communing with the divine that is closer to you than hands and feet, than your own breath, that adores you. That is so much more powerful and fulfilling. Yeah, I know. I know.